This is Shane Felis from VCA Church with an honest discussion on thankfulness. Now, when I was a kid, I was about 9 years old. I was sitting at the table and we were eating dinner, and I remember I was eating a certain food that happened to be green and it happened to be a food that I didn't like. It was squash. And I remember I didn't want to eat the squash, and it just was one of those days where I had a bad attitude. And I just sat there at the table and I thought to myself, what if I hid the squash? So I took the squash and I hid it behind the fridge. And I thought, Mom's never gonna find out. Guess what happened? She found out. And now I know moms find out everything. But you know what's funny about this story is that it wasn't necessarily the food that I was eating. It wasn't necessarily what type of squash I was eating. It was simply the attitude that I had that was not thankful. And when we talk about being thankful, having a heart that is thankful, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's based upon our situation or certain material items that we have. In the Bible, it states that we should give thanks and have a thankful heart in all circumstances. It's not something that our parents can force upon us or God can force upon us. We have to choose to be thankful. So the first verse that I have for you is it's in Thessalonians, 1 Thessalonians 5:16 through 18. It says, "Be joyful always, pray continually, give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus." So there's a few things there. The first one is be joyful always. It doesn't necessarily say in certain circumstances. It's joyful, meaning you may be sad, you may be angry, you may be tired. It doesn't matter what your feelings are. Joyful means you choose to be joyful. You're choosing to have a heart that is thankful to God. It says, pray continually and give thanks in all circumstances. We know that this is God's will in all circumstances, but how do we do this? Well, there's another verse that I want to talk about. It's actually a story in Luke chapter 17, verses 11 through 19. It says, "Now on his way to Jerusalem, Jesus traveled along the border between Samaria and Galilee, and he was going into a village, and 10 men who had leprosy met him. They stood at a distance and called out in a loud voice, 'Jesus, Master, have pity on us.' When he saw them, he said, 'Go, show yourselves to the priests.' And as they went, they were cleansed. One of them, when he saw he was healed, came back, praising God in a loud voice. He threw himself at Jesus' feet and thanked him. He was a Samaritan. Jesus asked, 'Were not all 10 cleansed? Where are the other 9? Was no one found to return and give praise to God except the foreigner?' Then he said to him, 'Rise and go, your faith has made you well.'" So what does this mean for you and I today? I encourage you today, if God has transformed your heart and your entire life, lay yourself down at his feet and thank him. You have to choose to go back and thank Jesus for what he's done. You can look around and see the fear, the chaos, the frustration, and the worry all around us. And you can say, hey, I choose to be thankful. I choose to be thankful because Christ died the worst death to redeem me, and he rose again. The very thing that we are also afraid of, death. All around us, we see so much fear of death. The very thing that everyone is so afraid of, Christ already conquered. He has paid the price. There is nothing we can't overcome because Jesus has already overcome for us. He has paid the price. So today I'll ask you this question. Will you choose to be thankful? Will you choose to be thankful because Christ has paid the price for you? For full-length sermons and new content daily, go to vcachurch.com.